Councillor Fontaine, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you too.
So we've heard about the policy ideas that you've been suggesting from time to time, whether it is bringing in efficiency at the Metro Vancouver regional level, or it is about some of the very pressing issues which are impacting our communities. It's always refreshing to hear your perspective, and we're glad that you could take the time to speak with us this morning. So first of all, thank you and welcome.
Well, thank you for having me in.
Let's start with this issue of vape shops.
Mm-hmm.
You recently floated this idea that, just how the provincial government has got a liquor and a cannabis regulation branch, that vape stores and vape products should be brought under a similar purview. Why do you think that is important?
Well, I think if you look around, not only my community of New Westminster, but look around the entire province pretty much. You go to Surrey or Coquitlam or Vancouver, any city, these vape shops are literally popping up everywhere. Like you look on a corner and suddenly there's a bit of vacant retail space, and then within literally moments it says leased. And you turn around and there's another vape shop. And there's a huge proliferation of these vape shops throughout our community, and it got me really thinking, is this the right way to be approaching this particular product in terms of it being so exposed? And in particular, I had some concerns around the fact that there's no regulations or no restrictions around it being put up right next to a high school or right next to an elementary school. These can pop up everywhere, anywhere. Unlike liquor stores and unlike cannabis stores, it's a real Wild West. They can go anywhere.
And is that something that the cities cannot do through their bylaws?
Very limited. So cities can make some attempts for sure. There are some approaches that we can do to kind of try to limit. But here's the problem. So I'll give you the example in New Westminster. Our secondary school is right on the border with Burnaby. So if we try to impose some restrictions, the vape shops can just pop up right across the street in the commercial district in Burnaby, and then we're right back to where we started from. This really has to be a provincial approach. It's one of the reasons why I think the province, the premier and the government needs to step in and needs to make these rules applicable across boundaries.
We had a segment earlier this week with a gentleman who's done some research in this matter, and the reason what motivated him to look into this deeper, a regular citizen, was the fact that a flyer shows up at his doorstep a couple of months ago, and the flyer is advertising some food products, like a restaurant. But the same flyer also says that vape products are available only for 19 plus. And this listener of ours was flabbergasted. He's like, how come this can happen? How come vape products, which is a restricted product category, be advertised along with a flyer which is advertising, pizzas or other food items. And then he started looking into the regulations. There is such a patchwork, Mr. Fontaine. There is a provincial regulation, there's a provincial act, there's a federal act, and it seems the experience of our listeners has been that nobody really knows who is going to go after that particular shop. Fraser Health says, okay, well, we'll forward it to this. And then the provincial authorities say, maybe we'll send this to Health Canada. So how can we address this patchwork? Yeah,
well, there definitely is a patchwork. Besides it being called the Wild West, it is a patchwork of policy. And you're correct. And you referenced the Fraser Health Authority. Interestingly, when I brought this motion forward to council initially for us to look at seeing what we could do in the city of New Westminster, Fraser Health was one of the organizations that just voluntarily wrote a letter to City Council and said, 100%, we support you. So even like the Fraser Health acknowledges that there is an issue here, but this is the problem. When you have multiple layers of government, multiple agencies that are dealing with this, some in a certain way, others not, it really is a patchwork. And we've, unfortunately, over time, just year after year, we've seen a proliferation of new vape shops. Now we're seeing, as you said, on pizza flyers coming in. Imagine if we did that for cigarettes. Imagine if that pizza flyer had a liquor advertisement coming in under the door and your kids were getting that. It really is not appropriate. So I think the time has come. A motion did go to the Union of BC Municipalities actually a couple of weeks ago. That motion did get passed. So that now is policy for advocacy from the Union of BC Municipalities to the provincial government, calling upon them to take action to make this a provincial regulated activity that would be falling under the same type of regulations and statutes that liquor and cannabis would.
That is very interesting because the provincial government this week has brought forward legislation where they are now wanting to hold to hold the vape companies accountable, just the same way tobacco manufacturers and opioid companies have been held to account. And I believe that $32.5 billion class action lawsuit settlement is giving this hope that, in the future, when we find out that vaping is actually causing harm and has put pressure on our healthcare system, then we will go after these companies. But it'll be too late by then.
No, it's too late. And I think that, look, I'm not going to dispute the province's initiative. It's a good one. But in terms of dealing with what we're dealing with today, with pizza flyers coming underneath your door, the province needs to take action today. We don't want to wait 10 or 20 years for a lawsuit.
So what would such a framework look like? If you were to suggest the province that this is exactly what you could do, and this is the impact it could have, could you please lay it out?
So some of the first approaches is, like we do with liquor stores, there is a restriction on the total number of liquor stores within a community. So for example, in my community of New Westminster, you can't have 5 liquor stores on one block. It just is not permitted. So we need some regulations to say that there has to be a limit on the number of vape stores. Secondly, there should be a regulation and restriction on the location of those stores so that even though there's a limited number of them, they should never be put right next to a high school or a place where youth might be able to easily access this type of product. And third, I think that similar to liquor and to cannabis, I think there should be some restrictions around promotions, advertising like you refer to in terms of flyers or whatever, however they're promoting or marketing themselves. There should be some limitations.
The regulations actually exist that advertising cannot be done through. The problem is in enforcement.
Yes,
and I believe if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Fontaine, do correct me if I'm wrong. For liquor and cannabis distribution, because of it coming under that provincial purview, there are dedicated inspectors that can go and check premises if there is some reports of a wrongdoing. But such a mechanism does not really exist. I think does it rest on the bylaw officers of the city if some infractions are reported at a vape shop within the city?
Yeah, well, again, our bylaw officers are limited to what falls under the jurisdiction of the city of New Westminster, and that is mostly on land use, on things like, for example, signage on covering. Like, there's some things that we cover for sure. We can jump in. But in terms of things like, restricting the total number, restricting where they're located, all those types of things, our powers are unfortunately very, very limited. I, have a feeling that if we pushed really far on that, there likely would be a legal challenge, and we likely would have a challenge winning that in court, because some may argue that these are provincial. This should be provincial restrictions, not municipal. So that's part of the problem.
Mr. Fontaine, let's now switch gears and talk about the Metro Vancouver Regional District. The workings at the Regional District at Metro Vancouver have been under the scanner, especially since the cost overruns came to fore about the wastewater treatment plant. That plant is not constructed yet, and the number that we always talk about, that it's now close to $3.6 billion, that number could very well go up by the time the wastewater treatment plant is completed.
Absolutely. We do not have all the final bills yet on that North Shore wastewater treatment plant, but I would anticipate that it'll be probably close to $4 billion at the end of the day. And from a financial impact, if you live on the North Shore, you're paying an additional close to $600 a year now for taxes for 30 years. So it's a very, very large number. It's very expensive.
How do we bring in efficiency into the way we operate our region? Do we really need as many municipalities? There is that side of the conversation as well, that does there need to be some amalgamation here? Do we need a White Rock within a Surrey? Do we need 2 Langleys? Do we need a North Vancouver and a district of North Vancouver? So what do you think needs to happen? Because something drastic needs to take place here.
Yeah, and I think that I would like to separate the debate of the amalgamation from the actual reform and making Metro Vancouver more efficient. Because I think if we go down the road of talking about amalgamation, we'll never get to actual reforms at Metro Vancouver, because we'll be talking about amalgamation for the next 10 or 20 years. There are some significant approaches that we could look at from a governance perspective at Metro Vancouver. I don't know if your listeners know, but we have 41 board directors.
That's
41.
That's larger than the Carney cabinet.
It's larger than the cabinet, and they're running Metro Vancouver. Like, do we need 41? And it's growing. It's actually not getting smaller. It's growing. These board directors, up until people like myself and Councillor Kashid and Councillor Annis and Surrey, we started speaking out about this, and the per diems and the money they were getting, $1,000 to attend meetings, etc. Those things are now starting to get trimmed back. International travel's now been basically put on hold. They're looking at cutting the board, and looks like maybe up to 50%. So some of the reforms that we've been advocating for are coming, but it's been very, very slow. But at the end of the day, this organization has gotten so big, it's rivaling some provincial crown corporations now in terms of its multi-billion-dollar budget. So I think that we need more professional kind of oversight on the board. I think there needs to be some more independent review of some of the financials so that, you know, some of these big projects can be put out to independent reviews and come back so the public knows that, the Metro Vancouver has done their due diligence. There's a number of things that need to be done soon, and some things are starting to happen, but not fast enough, in my opinion.
Do you think an elected Metro Vancouver board could be an answer? Because right now, the members who are at the Metro Vancouver are nominated through the cities. And when those members, when those councillors or, you know, whichever cities they're representing, when it comes to re-election time, they're only seeking votes from their communities, from those particular cities.
Yes.
So the workings at Metro Vancouver kind of go somewhere in the background. Should Metro Vancouver board be an elected body?
You know, that's a good question. It's one that's been posed to me many, many times. I'm actually open to that idea. I really do believe that, like myself, I'm an elected official in New Westminster. I'm 100% accountable for every single dollar that is spent in the city. Yet, as you point out, the people who sit around that board of 41 directors are not accountable. And I think that disconnect between the amount of money that's being spent, the lack of accountability, has resulted in some very poor decision making at Metro Vancouver over the last number of years. So while I think there's some real merit in getting elected, I would just caution the public that simply electing a bunch of politicians to Metro Vancouver will not necessarily mean cost savings. It won't necessarily mean some administrative savings. That will have to come through a more focused, laser-focused approach in kind of looking at a governance review, a core services review, and making sure that, you know, Metro Vancouver is dealing with housing. It's dealing with parks. It's dealing with now economic development branch. I mean, it go on and on. Their scope has so expanded. Perhaps it's time for a look at what's underneath that hood, and maybe we should focus on sewer, on water, on waste, on garbage removal, the core services that really we need Metro Vancouver for, and maybe leave the other things to cities to manage. And that,
go back to the basics.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you had a magic wand and you could fix something in our region, what would that be? The reason I ask you this question is because I find you to be one of those councillors whose focus is not just strictly or simply limited to the city in which you are a council member, but your ideas and your commentary has a wide-ranging impact on the region itself. So what's the one thing you would like to change if you had a magic wand?
If I had a magic wand, and I certainly wish I would say that for me, it is the reform at Metro Vancouver and bringing that board down to a smaller size, making it more of a professional board and making sure that it delivers the core services that Metro Vancouver residents need, because we need Metro Vancouver. It's not like we want to blow it up and have it go away. We need a strong Metro Vancouver, but we need an efficient Metro Vancouver and one that's in tune with the taxpayers who are actually funding the bills.
Mr. Fontaine, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to have you on air, and we look forward to more conversations with you in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.